Welcome to episode 46 of the Most Serious podcast. In today's episode, it is again going to be a solo episode, and I thought of many topics that I could talk about, many topics that were on my mind, and then I remembered that in the beginning of this year I was reading the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin, and that is not a very long book. It's a slim book. It has probably like 150 odd pages. But Benjamin Franklin is actually a very interesting guy. He was such a polymath. I don't know what's the correct word for a person who does multiple disciplines of academics. He was into so many things. He was into politics and whatnot. So I found it very interesting. He has a lot of insights that he kind of experienced over his life that he wanted to pass along to his son. I believe that was the whole idea of him writing those virtues down, him writing all the lessons that he learned. Benjamin Franklin is certainly one of the most intriguing persons I personally have come across whenever I've encountered history. So I thought of recording an episode and discussing all the 13 virtues that he outlined in his book and discussing them with you, giving you my point of view on all of those 13 virtues, how they could be inculcated in our lives, how I personally understand them, and what do they mean to me. Also, like an anecdotal fact that I remember about Benjamin Franklin is that in childhood I used to play a lot of Assassin's Creed games, and I think the exact game was Assassin's Creed Forsaken. It's the third one, I believe, where the American Revolution happens. So the Boston Tea Party and all those incidents. So in that game, actually you encounter Benjamin Franklin walking down the street, and there's a side quest in that game wherein you have to collect the papers that flew away from his diary or his journal. So it's actually, that's the first time I kind of met Benjamin Franklin in the virtual world. But yeah, that's the thing I like about Assassin's Creed games in general. Like, they are so fine-tuned according to the historical events that happened that you just feel like you're living a part of or a piece of history with them. But let's talk about Benjamin Franklin today. Let's discuss what he was all about, what 13 virtues that he had that he wrote his book on. Certainly very interesting is just a plain word to define him, but this was some guy. So before we explore Benjamin Franklin's 13 virtues, again, I've got the format for these solo episodes. I've got a piece of text that I usually read out through, and then I pass along my commentary, my understandings, going off on tangents, discussing about things that I personally think relate to the topic that we're talking about. So I'll go through this piece of text and we will discuss what Benjamin Franklin's 13 virtues were. Before we do that, it is essential to understand the remarkable life of the man behind them. Benjamin Franklin, born in 1706 in Boston, was a true polymath. He was a printer, author, scientist, inventor, and diplomat. His contributions to the American history are immeasurable. From his role in drafting the US Constitution to his experiments with electricity, he lived during a transformative period known as the American Enlightenment, which was marked by a flourishing of intellectual and philosophical thought. I think I remember some experiment that Benjamin Franklin did that was related to electricity. Now I'm not sure if this was exactly that, that there's this experiment in physics or in science books you read in school that he flew a kite in lightning or somewhere. I think it's similar to that. I can't remember the exact incident, but he discovered something related to electricity by flying a kite in a weather where lightning was striking and everything. I don't know. If anyone knows, maybe you can comment it out what was the exact incident and if it was Benjamin Franklin at all. So if we get down to his 13 virtues, let's go through one by one each of them. Let's discuss, let's kind of try to understand what were they about, and maybe if we find something to go off on tangents more, then we will. Let's dive into Benjamin Franklin's 13 virtues. These virtues were his personal code of conduct, which he believed could lead to a life of wisdom and fulfillment. They are as follows. Before we get into these virtues, I just want to think about this fact that these virtues were his personal code of conduct, which I feel is a good way to go through your life, to have a set of rules, to have a code of conduct, if you may, because that definitely gives you a lot of order in your life. I personally, in my experience, have experienced that whenever there is uncertainty, whenever there is not a routine in my life, I tend to go back to my most laziest, most unproductive, most lethargic lifestyle, because if I'm not supposed to do a thing, then most likely I won't be doing that. So having a personal code of conduct, having some values, having some routines, having some benchmarks in your life, I think that goes a long way. That certainly helps you to put structure into your life. That helps you to define rules, define order in your life. And that actually plays a very important role in keeping you sane. I was reading this quote from one of these authors from Daily Stoic, and it was like, eat well, lift weights, go take care of your body, read, sleep at time, and things like those. Just the basic things. It's not exceptional ability or exceptional actions that will set you apart. It is just sanity. And I think sanity is very closely correlated to having a code of conduct, having some personal structure in your life. I feel that has certainly been true for me. Well, the first virtue of Benjamin Franklin was temperance. Let's see what temperance meant for Benjamin Franklin. Underscores the significance of moderation in all aspects of life. Franklin believed that by practicing temperance, individuals could maintain physical and mental balance. This means not overindulging in food or drink, as well as avoiding impulsive or excessive behaviors. I think this is something that almost all of us kind of struggle with. And the fact that he was at that point cognizant of temperance in both the physical and the mental state. Because I don't know how many distractions were there at the time of Benjamin Franklin, and certainly not as much as we encounter in our daily lives. But I feel that temperance is, again, it's very much correlated to just leading a simple, sane life. I personally overindulge in the digital aspect of my life a lot. I feel like my screen time is way off the charts. I spend way too much time looking at screens all day. If it's my work, if it's my leisure time even. Sometimes, because now it's almost everything is correlated to you just viewing a screen and spending all of your time there. So I think that certainly goes out of balance, and it has implications in my life. And on physical terms as well, like if you constantly are not taking care of your body, and if you're constantly overindulging into food, drink, or whatever it is, then it starts showing up sooner or later, and you can't escape that. So it's a very simple thing to practice, but it's a very hard thing to remember, I guess. Temperance is certainly something that instantly, intuitively feels right. By practicing this virtue, Franklin encouraged people to cultivate the self-discipline necessary for sound decision making and long-term success. Well, that makes a lot of sense. The second virtue of Mr. Benjamin Franklin was silence. The second virtue, silence, isn't just about keeping quiet. It's about listening and speaking thoughtfully. I really want to take a moment here and think about the times that I've had the best conversations, be it on the podcast, be it in real life, be it with friends, be it with family. The best conversations I have are ones that are driven by curiosity and that are driven by me genuinely, thoughtfully listening to what the other person has to say. More often than not, I think we are just waiting for our turns to speak, and that results in a constant state of speaking. And it doesn't mean that you're speaking like outwards. It doesn't mean you're literally speaking in front of people all the time. It means you're speaking in your head almost always. Because when you are always ready to reply, when you're always waiting for your chance to just state something, then you're always preparing in your mind to speak something. And there's no space left for you to actually receive, listen, or understand what the other person is trying to say. I feel this is a really important part of not just having conversations, but a way of life as well, that you need to be ready to receive for you to receive. If more often than not, we are constantly ready to speak, ready to defend ourselves, ready to just give our opinions, then that's all we have, because there's no space left for us to receive. And I think that's what Benjamin Franklin meant when he said silence as his virtue. Franklin understood that thoughtful communication was the key to effective relationships and problem solving. By choosing silence over impulsivity, he believed one could avoid unnecessary conflicts and foster more productive and harmonious interactions. I just want you to think about this in a hypothetical way. Like, if from this moment on, just for this day, if you had all the conversations that you are about to, in a manner which is thoughtful, in a manner which is genuinely trying to listen to what the other person has to say, and also trying to understand their point of view. Just by thinking about that, I mean, you would feel a sense of calmness, a sense of more relaxed state of mind, because then you are clearing up that space, that mental block of always trying to speak and never being able to listen. The third virtue of Ben Franklin was order. For Franklin, order meant bringing structure and organization into your daily life. He recognized that a well-ordered life was a cornerstone of productivity. By maintaining order, you can ensure that you are making the most of your time and resources, allowing you to pursue your goals and passions more efficiently. So I've been recently reading this book called 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson, and he talks about order and chaos a lot. Again, I think in our lives, we sometimes just naturally tend to believe that order is more about unnecessary discipline, unnecessary significance given to, just maintaining things a certain way, just maintaining a structure for no good reason. If we can't statistically or logically define the purpose of maintaining order, then we feel that it's useless. But I kind of disagree with it, because order is just making your bed once you wake up. Order is just keeping your room clean. That's what Jordan Peterson talks about a lot. That you want to solve the world's problem and your room is untidy, then where are you planning to go? Order is trying to maintain structure. Order is trying to maintain that integrity of things around you. And it goes for people, it goes for you, it goes for the environment that you live in. And I was recently, on the last page or the last piece of text I was reading on this book was, look around your surroundings, look in your environment and try to find things that you can fix. Try to actually look at your environment and see real physical objects or real physical situations that you would fix. It could be as simple as sorting your Almira out. It could be as simple as structuring that pile of papers that's been on your desk. There's a reason you don't want to do it, but if you can take any incremental action which leads you closer to a cleaner, a more orderful, a structured environment, then that reciprocates into your mental compartmentalization of thoughts, of reality, of understanding this life world around you. I think this is what I understand when we talk about order in terms of the book that I've been reading and what Ben Franklin has to say. The fourth virtue was resolution. Resolution was one of Franklin's most cherished virtues. It highlights the importance of unwavering commitment to your goals and decisions. Franklin believed that with strong resolution, one could overcome obstacles and persist in the face of adversity. If you think about it, that these virtues are very much aligned to each other, and one of them is just a tangent to the other one, to the previous one. When people with resolve have done things that we couldn't have imagined. It is a reminder that resolute determination is often the driving force behind extraordinary achievements. And there certainly have been instances in my life, and I believe for anyone listening to this show, there would have been instances in their lives as well where they decided something that they wanted to do. They resolved that I will do this no matter what. They took a resolution and they took it seriously just for themselves. I believe the resolutions that we keep to ourselves, that are really personal to ourselves, stick way more than the ones that we do for society, for the world, for our peers, for people around us. The more personal a resolution is, the higher the chances are of it to stick. When it comes from really the core of your being, when it is something that you just have to do, want to do, should do, could do, no matter what, then it sticks. And I believe everyone has kind of experienced that. Everyone has had those moments where they believed, or people around them believed, that the feat that they achieved was not possible, but because of that internal resolve, because of that internal determination, that happened. That's what I understand from resolution. The fifth virtue of Mr. Ben Franklin was frugality. Franklin's frugality virtue is a timeless lesson in financial prudence. He stressed the importance of living within one's means, saving for the future, and avoiding unnecessary expenses. By practicing frugality, You can achieve financial stability and secure your future while avoiding the pitfalls of debt and extravagance. So is extravagance a pitfall? I don't know, but could be, because then I think it is, because it's a bottomless pit. You can keep being more extravagant than you are today, and someone out there is more extravagant than you ever could be. So I think, yeah, that is a pitfall. Debt is of course a pitfall. Debt is something so vicious that will destroy lives of many. But frugality can also be extrapolated to, I believe, the choice of things you consume relates to the first virtue, which was temperance, having everything in moderation. But also you could be frugal with just the content you consume. You could be frugal with the people that you hang out with. You could be frugal with the thoughts you really choose to give your attention to. You could be frugal with the decisions you make and the factors that go into your decision making. Like frugality also could mean a more minimalist, a more conscious, a more simple life if you extrapolate it to your life. But of course, in terms of money, I think choosing to be frugal at the right times is very important, I guess, because unconscious frugality will lead you nowhere. It will only make you more despiteful. It will make you stressed. It will make you just someone who's very jealous, someone who's just very sad. And also, like, what's the exact word when someone's kind of angry and they're just disgruntled with everyone around them? I think that's what frugality does. Unconscious frugality does to a person. But being consciously frugal, knowing what you have to, what you want to get, and then choosing not to fall into debt and extravagant. The sixth virtue of Mr. Franklin was industry. The virtue industry promotes the value of hard work and diligence. Franklin recognized that industriousness was the key to personal growth and achievement. By embracing the ethic of industry, you can be more productive and strive towards your goal with unwavering dedication and commitment. Whenever I think of industry, whenever I think of hard work, I don't know why athletes come to mind, because that's a very real form of industry that you can see right in front of you, because that's physical exertion. But I think it almost applies to each and every one of us. The more industrious you are, kind of shows the ability to go to those lengths to achieve success, to achieve your goals. But I'm still not completely, maybe I don't understand this virtue of Mr. Franklin, that industry, what does it actually mean in my personal life? I don't feel I'm as industrious as I could name many people around me. But yeah, I think I'm still yet to figure out the true meaning for myself for this virtue. The seventh virtue was sincerity. Sincerity emphasizes honesty and transparency in all your interactions. Franklin believed that by being sincere, you can build trust and maintain strong relationships. It's a reminder that the foundation of any meaningful connection, whether personal or professional, is open and honest communication. I believe these words, which are so simple, like a word like sincerity, I think everyone growing up from school, college, we would have heard these words like, you should be sincere, be a decent person, be someone responsible. These are very effective, simple virtues. I again, this reminds me of a quote that I read. I think I was reading Chris Williamson's newsletter yesterday, and there was, he was talking about how the structures that were made, how the foundations that were built for things by our ancestors, by society in general before, like the walls that were created for a society to operate in. Beyond those walls is terror, beyond those walls is darkness, beyond those walls is uncertainty and just a lot of dark places. So many of these notions, many of these ideals, many of these philosophies, if you may say, were built on maintaining and being able to live a good life, being able to live a structured life. Like once you start wandering off beyond these structures that were kind of built from the people that came before us, then sometimes you might find something worthwhile, but more often than not, that could lead to you wandering off into very dark places. So these walls, these structures built by society are not necessarily always wrong. They were there for a reason. They could be modified, they could be tinkered with to adapt them to the modern day life, but they certainly aren't obsolete just because they are old, just because they were already present and they weren't invented today. That's how I feel about sincerity. The 8th virtue was justice. The virtue of justice underscores the importance of fairness and ethical behavior. Franklin recognized that justice was fundamental for a just society. By striving for justice, you can ensure that your actions align with moral principles, contributing to the betterment of not just your life, but the lives of those around you. Justice also reminds me of Batman for some reason. Yeah, I think that's self-sufficient. That kind of explains the whole point. Personally, I would say that I'm still yet to get there to the point that I would start looking at myself as a person who is serving justice to a society. I think I'm still far away from that. I still feel like first I have to develop myself to a level that I'm doing justice to myself, and then look at how can I help people around me, my society, and the just world in general to serve justice to them. But of course, this doesn't mean that you don't raise your voice when injustice is happening around you. That is a responsibility. Virtue 9 is moderation. I believe, again, this is very similar to the first virtue, temperance. Moderation, again, means to avoid extremes and maintain a balanced life. Franklin understood that excess, whether in behavior, consumption, or emotion, could lead to negative consequences. By practicing moderation, you can prevent the pitfalls of overindulgence and find a more harmonious and sustainable way of living. This is very interesting. Excess, whether in behavior, consumption, or emotion, could lead to negative consequences. And when we think of moderation, I think most of us kind of just stop at consumption, because consumption is the only form of thing that comes to mind whenever you think of moderation, whenever you think of balance. Like, I'm eating so much food, I need to moderate. I'm drinking so much, so I need to moderate this. But also behavior and emotion are two other aspects of moderation that could be applied to. So if you are overly emotional and emotions rule you, emotions drive you all the time, that is a very real possibility that you might end up you might end up facing those negative consequences. So you need to be cognizant enough of yourself to make yourself realize that whether you are overindulging into emotion, consumption, or behaviors. The 10th virtue of Ben Franklin was cleanliness. Franklin's virtue of cleanliness encompasses both physical and mental aspects. It's about maintaining a clean environment and fostering clear thinking. A clean, organized space can help reduce stress and promote productivity. Similarly, a clear mind is better equipped to tackle challenges and make sound decisions. This is similar to what we talked about when we talked about frugality in terms of mental well-being. Like, having a clear environment in general translates, or at least maybe you expect of yourself more when you have a clean room. That's what I think. Because you have solved a situation at hand. You've cleaned your room. Your room is in order. Your almirah is in order. Things around you in your environment are looking that they are in order. So then you go on to what next thing could I fix. And similarly, if you are able to have that level of order, have that level of cleanliness in the mental aspect, then that again ties to you making better decisions, you being more able, you having that capacity to listen, to receive, to have meaningful connections with people around you and in your life as well. The 11th virtue was tranquility. The virtue of tranquility highlights the importance of maintaining emotional balance. Franklin recognized that inner peace was crucial for mental well-being and resilience. By cultivating tranquility, you can better navigate life's challenges and maintain a calm, composed, and more focused mind. I don't know what is like the usual time for everyone to feel the most tranquil, but I feel whenever I wake up, that's the time when it's always a new day, it's always a new start. That's the time I'm most peaceful before I pick up my phone and check Instagram, before I check other apps. But just before that moment, because you are just woken up from a good night's sleep and you are well rested, then you are really in a state of calmness, you are in a state of tranquility. For me, that's the way it goes. But also, if you could have that state of mind throughout your day, imagine the level of decisions that you would be making. Imagine the situations that you would be able to avoid just because you have that state of mind. So being able to carry that level of simplicity, that level of tranquility, that level of clarity in your life will elevate a lot of your decision making skills, and also kind of eliminate a lot of rash decisions, a lot of in the moment impulsive actions, because then you would be able to think of more than just what's good for now. And there was another piece of text that I read from the Chris Williams newsletter, the host of the Modern Wisdom podcast. It was, think about what would the 24 hours in the future, what would the next day in future version of you do whenever you face a situation where you have to make a decision. What would they be more thankful of that you took this decision? So let's say if you were to order a pizza or a salad. Now this doesn't mean that you always have to order a salad, but let's say if you're ill and in that moment you know that a pizza would do you more harm than good, and you face this choice of ordering in a pizza or a salad which would promote your well-being, you would get better soon, and then you can have whatever you want to. But let's say you order a pizza, then the version of you which is present the next day, like the you just 24 hours in the future, would have to deal with the consequences of the you that is in the present acts. So you have to think about the person in the future as well. Immediate actions of today have consequences that you only will have to face tomorrow. And this is like quite literally, I'm not talking about any philosophical reference of you do good things today, 5 years later you'll reap those benefits. I'm not talking even about that duration of a time frame. I'm just saying whatever you do today, the consequences are coming tomorrow. So that is something I feel relates, that I understand from tranquility. The 12th virtue and the second last virtue was chastity, as defined by Franklin, isn't limited to matters of sexual conduct. It extends to self-control in all aspects of life. It is about curbing desires, impulses, and temptations that could lead us astray. Chastity reminds us of importance of self-discipline and making choices that align with our values. Most of these virtues are similar to each other. I think just the fact that Ben Franklin broke them down into multiple virtues was because he wanted to highlight them in different aspects of life. But they run around circles regarding the same point of temperance, regarding the same point of justice, regarding the same point of moderation. I believe that's what it is. Being cognizant enough of yourself to choose to live a life more consciously. And the last virtue of Ben Franklin was humility. The final virtue, humility, encourages self-awareness and recognizing one's limitations. Franklin believed that embracing humility was essential for personal growth and building meaningful relationships. It's a reminder that we all are constantly learning, and acknowledging our areas for improvement can lead to personal and intellectual development. This is such a good realization to have, that you are most times, often that not again, your biggest enemy when it comes to growth. Because if you're not humble enough, if you're not in that space where you feel that there's a lot to learn, then you might never learn, then you might never grow. Because the fact that you yourself are telling yourself that you know everything about a certain topic or about a certain discipline, then that puts a cap on whatever you could have done in that discipline. To be humble enough to know that you don't know enough is a superpower. To be humble enough to not let your ego get in the way of someone trying to teach you something, that is a literal superpower that allows you to know so much more, be so much more, and have just this experience of life so vibrant and so expanded in almost all aspects. So these are all the 13 virtues of Benjamin Franklin. I kind of had a good refresher of all of these after reading that book, certainly like 6-7 months ago. He was a very interesting person. I think if anyone gets interested about his life, they can go on, watch documentaries on him. They can read more about him. Definitely read his book. These virtues, again, serve as reminders that we could base our lives around. And almost everyone would agree that if we are able to carry them, even if we are able to carry 3, 5, 8 of them with us, they definitely incrementally improve the quality of our life. They improve the quality of the decisions that we make. They improve the quality of the experience that we have. So this is the reason why I feel that these self-development spaces, these self-growth books, or just these experiences of people who lived lives that were way greater than the lives that we lead, that the modern man, that the average person leads, they serve as reminders to do things which allow us to experience a greater, bigger life. So that was Benjamin Franklin and his 13 virtues. I hope you liked listening to the episode. It could have been boring. I don't know if some of you dozed off or stopped listening, but if you're still here, if you're still listening, thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I really enjoyed reading and talking about these virtues, and I'll see you in the next episode soon.